I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen. I won't let them fester me, I know most are festering. Negativity is a plague for the mentally weak. No mercy, all I got is working. Never stop searching, never quite so thirsty. I'm toxic and psychotic, with this logic you can't stop it. It's been chronic since I was a boy, so neurotic and chaotic.
I'm built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the cast, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grieving. Put your foot on the gas, no, never stop competing, yeah.
I've been doing this, I'm on it, I just wanna be iconic. Sipping on a gin and tonic, got me going off when I'm on this topic, yeah. If I ever play, I want it, you know that I'm always honest. Stay away from those who are toxic, keep them out your face, no way, you don't want it, yeah.
Don't try to drain my energy, the enemy is everything. It's mentally, unhealthily, spreading like a rare disease. But I won't let it get to me, I don't need your therapy. I can leave a legacy of leading by intensity. Come on, we can fight this, freedom is priceless. Spread just like a virus, living in a crisis. Do you feel courageous? Do you seek greatness? Trust me, you can take it, go on and take your aim. I'm built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I can change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the gas, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grieving. Put your foot on the gas, no, never stop competing, yeah.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, yeah.
Turn on your mind now, tune into the feed. We're planting digital flowers from a single tiny seed. Yeah, power to the collective in the data and the soul. The hive mind's getting louder, finding voice and control.
When we get to the FBI, we don't know who did the work. You heard that any of that information is redacted. We don't know who did the work. It's a giant secret. We know that by the time the FBI gets involved, the profile, the text file, that's a snip to use to try to identify somebody is more than twice as big when it gets to the FBI from Othram. We don't know how.
I've got an itch I can't scratch, I'm missing a piece that completes a whole part of me, an open wound scar to see. Everybody come here, gather round, welcome to the freak show, the best in town.
What is going on, Hive? I hope that everybody's having a fantastic day. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm your host, Bertie. I go live weeknights at 7 p.m. Central. Welcome to the Hive Mind. We like to think past the headlines and we question the narrative here. Tonight's theme is you think you know the Idaho 4 case, huh? You think you know because you've seen some videos, you've read some documents, you think you have an answer, you think you have a theory. Many do, myself included. However, do we really know? This evening, I got JJ State of the Deep backstage. I figured he was the perfect guest to have on to discuss this topic. It's not necessarily the most popular topic to talk about in this case because everybody wants an answer. Everybody wants something that you can tangibly look at and say, this happened and this was the result. We have not gotten that in this case. We've been told a lie of what happened, and then the result that even the lie should produce, it hasn't come to fruition either. And so that's what we're going to be diving into. I'm going to be getting JJ up here rather quickly this evening. I do want to talk about this poll, though, that I had in the chat as you guys were waiting for the live to start. And it was, in the Idaho 4 case, have you seen an unredacted autopsy photo, a crime scene shot, or a coroner's diagram? Over 200 votes, and 93% of people said no. Apparently, 7% of people have. And to those people that did say yes, as far as an unredacted autopsy photo, any of the crime scene photos where there'd be a body or a coroner's diagram, if you've seen an unredacted one, who are you? Because unless that was somebody misvoting, I don't know how that would be possible. Somebody asked if they were lucid dreaming. And if you said the one they took down immediately, which I saw Gramilla just say that, I don't know. Do you count that? I mean, could you really tell? I don't know. Had lucid dreaming and shock phase, yes, was like, are you saying Idaho 4 or just in general for other cases? And I did mean specific to the Idaho 4. Anyways, I found that interesting that some people have said that they said yes. As you're filing in, please go ahead, hit that like button, do all of the things. You guys know the deal with the QR code. If you don't know the deal with the QR code, all you have to do is screenshot this, and then when the live concludes, go to your Photos app on your phone and just tap on it. That will bring up a link to the Hive merch store, the Spotify playlist for all the intro songs, my TikTok, and our Discord. The mods will also be dropping the Hive Plus link, which, this being a holiday weekend, Mrs. Birdie and I have plans, but when I get back that following Saturday, there will be a Hive Plus War Room. Those are always great. They're a lot of fun. Those are the one day a week on Saturdays. I go live around 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., and the chat is reserved for the Hive Plus members. The stream, everybody can still watch, but that's the one day a week where the chat will be for the Hive Plus folks. Now, I do have a question of the day, but I'm going to be waiting for JJ to dive into that. And Hive, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring up Mr. State of the Deep. JJ, how are you doing?
What's up, Bertie? What's up, Hive? I'm doing good, man.
Hive, let me know on the volume, making sure that it's equal. Thank you to Hottie JG said, how do you leave touch DNA on a sheath button without touching it elsewhere? Just jumping right into it tonight, which is, again, you think you know. So, JJ, if you were to explain that, right, from the most basic level, how do you think most people would say what they would say? Maybe they put gloves on and they had accidentally touched it before they put those gloves on, or what would your answer be?
I don't know how any logical person could come up with an explanation for that. Honestly. I don't know the mental gymnastics required just to deal with the knife sheath. Forget everything else. Just the knife sheath alone. It's just, you really gotta be wrestling with some things, deeper things, if you are buying a lot of the information we've been spoon-fed, in my opinion.
So, again, you think you know, I hate to be the person that has to, I don't know, maybe wrestle with it in my own head as far as how much trust do we have? I mean, if they've lied about such little things, they're cornerstone in this case has been the DNA on this sheath. And so that's their big, bright light of guilt. And so if they've lied about so much smaller of things, why are we to believe the one big solid thing that they say is proof? Meaning the sheath, it looks brand new. There's minimal blood on it. There's minimal DNA on it. The way that they got that DNA is sus as all get out. And so to Hottie JG's point, how do you leave touch DNA on a sheath button without touching it elsewhere? I don't think you could. I think you planted it. I think you planted it, or you just made it up that it's on there.
Yeah, well, if you look, I know that we've all cycled through different theories at different stages, right, throughout the case, because there were different chunks of time. You had the early stages of the case where before Koberger was arrested, and we were all profilers, right? We all were profiling what type of person we thought did the crime before he was arrested. And then when he was arrested, then you start formulating other theories. Why did he know them? Was he stalking them? And there's different, hello, everybody. There's different stages, right? We've all gone through it with the different theories. We've all watched the various content creators, and we've had our little, I've gone through stages with my theories. The only thing that I'm certain of is, to your point, if we've been lied to about so many things, why would we believe anything that we were told now?
And I know that will send people when you say that, or I say that, or anybody says that, because they want to, their clapback would be like, so we just can't believe anything. And the argument to that would, I guess maybe the best argument to that would be, in my mind, okay, so what do you think you know? And then when they say, oh, I looked at a document, okay, people want to talk about discrediting witnesses or discrediting footage or discrediting documentation. I have said this quite a few times. Fudging the documents in a case that makes no sense would be the easiest thing to do. The way that you word something, the way that you write something, you omit a couple of words purposefully, it changes the entire document.
Right. And I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record tonight. So it's, Bertie, it's up to you to keep me, snap me back in, bring me back.
Okay.
But so many things, like, all right, if a case involves any degree of national security, that supersedes anything, right? And if you tie in big money, as in, let's say, for example, a university that has a big financial stake on the line, then you have two major angles or two major weights weighing on the case. You have the national security aspect, and then you have the big money aspect. And make no mistake, smaller university or not, that's big money on the line, because you're also talking about not only enrollment, but student loans on the back end, which is all connected to the banking, investment banks, the bigger banks. So you're bringing up a very, see, you think like I do, in the sense that you reframe things. That's the way my brain works. I reframe things, and sometimes, which pisses a lot of people off, I work backwards. What would the motivations be to be lying about the case, rather than to go to, say, the knife sheath and try to make sense of the knife sheath, right? Because if I've been lied to enough, then I'm not going to keep buying into the smaller bits and pieces that are, leaked out, like the breadcrumbs that were given. Because in my opinion, a lot of times when you have these higher profile cases, they're just distractions.
Right. I agree. Don't Drink Chunky Milk said, believe nothing of what you see and half of what you hear.
It's actually the other way around.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. That's like what I've said, I got to race like a piss horse.
I'm direct. I'm dyslexic too, so I get things mixed up all the time.
Yes. Chaos and Christina said, loans, enrollment, and the economy of Moscow. It's always about the money. There are more reasons to cover this up than there aren't. Correct. I totally agree with that. the challenge with trying to talk about a motive of a cover up is, oddly enough, that list is endless. That list is probably the easiest thing to theorize on, is what would the motive be? That's been something that everybody's been easily able to do. It's the university, it's the frats, it's, or some sort of combination of Greek life with sororities and frats, it's drugs. Who knows what it is, right? It's Dylan being jealous. We've done that for so long. And so, however, while yes, that might be a motive, and we have individual people that all have skin in the game, that they all want their own self-benefit to this as far as going away, when it's just a small town local cover up, typically when that happens in your own backyard, you want to keep things very quiet. You want it to go away quickly, and people don't talk. They've only done about a third of that. It didn't go away. It certainly has not been quick. And it almost feels as if there's a push of this in the media rather than, no, you're not able to report on it. There's a select group of mainstream media folks. There's a select group of people involved in this case that seem to be able to speak out whenever they want and say whatever they want. To me, that does not fit the bill or the mold of a small cover-up.
I agree 100%. I've said it so many times. It seems like there's multiple levels involved in let's just say cover up, and that requires coordination, and coordination that goes up the chain typically is connected to something further up the chain. It doesn't go from the bottom up, it comes from the top down. And I think that in this particular case, what I think is important to look at is that we've reached a point in society where elites have this attitude like, how dare you peasants don't accept everything we tell you and whatever we just feed you. You're supposed to swallow everything and not question it. And the mainstream media has been used to having that cachet for many decades. And they cry that people don't trust them anymore. And the government cries that, we're losing trust among citizens. Well, they have brought us to this point. And so whenever I hear people on the periphery of a case, say in the media or people connected to the case, attacking people for questioning what they're being spoon-fed, that's a red flag to me.
I agree with that. The other thing that we're going to go there tonight, JJ, I'm not even talking about this case specifically. If what I'm saying, if you think in your mind you can apply it to this case, then so be it. And you can read between the lines and apply the bits and pieces that you think might. One thing that I think a lot of people need to remember is that the ability to fake things, anything, has probably become easier than ever. The ability to fake photos, to edit photos, to fake videos, to create fake body cam, fake security footage, autopsy reports, diagrams. You can do that with 4 sentences on any basic AI program. So easily. You know what I'm saying, JJ?
Yeah, 100%.
I just want to show people again an example of how easy this really is. So if I go here and I'd say Idaho 4 crime scene investigation, I go grab a photo. And I go to ChatGPT and I say, okay, I'm going to paste this photo in here, create an image. Now let me go back. I'm going to grab these all from Google. And I'm going to say, okay, so I have the sheath and I have this. I said, I want you to input the sheath onto the floor and be halfway covered up by a t-shirt that says, I love New York. Like the most random thing. Okay. And my whole point in doing this is not to show people how AI works, but I'm saying this is in 20 seconds. This doesn't even include somebody who has a program that does this for a living. There's already movies out that are fully AI that I bet we don't even know. Have you ever seen just the power of a green screen? The way that people act nowadays is nowhere near what you'd expect. There's fans on them. They're not actually driving cars. They're not actually running through the woods. They're running in a warehouse surrounded by green screens with a bunch of sensors on them. The technology is off the charts.
And what the government has is decades ahead of what consumers have.
Okay. So already it did that. Okay. And if I wanted to edit it, I'll just say, I want you to have the sheath partially visible and have it look as if peanut butter has been spilled on the ground. You get the point. But
Yeah.
I think I just am showing people too. And it's done well. So again, I'm not saying that they used it in this case. I'm just saying they could. They could do all of it. You could type this in. And if you're familiar with ChatGPT or Grok or anything, you could say, I want you to create an autopsy report for a 32-year-old male who fell and landed on a pencil that ended up being the cause of death. And it would write one up, and it would write it in the exact same language as anybody would.
Well, this is where you get into the I guess what I call the framing, is where people will frame a case in a more traditional way. But we're not in traditional times. Society has evolved, and the power and abilities of technology have escalated, or accelerated rather, so quickly that who knows what we've been told and what we've seen that's supposed to be real, or it's presented as being real, that's completely AI generated. You remember I sent you that picture? We were talking that one time, and you we were just kind of doing a thought experiment, and I told you what I saw in that picture, that it was two separate bodies. Yes. Now, this is where the thought experiment part comes in, right? And if you think about what would motives possibly be, let's just hypothetically pretend it's not the Idaho 4 case, right? It's any case. If there were bigger motives involved, I'm AI. You guys didn't know that? I've already been accused of being AI.
And I think that you need to say, you can't even say if there's bigger motives involved. Dude, I mean, there is. There 100% is. There's already. I also think, too, and I don't want to interrupt you and get you off your course of thought, but I have to say this. It's like, people get so offended whether you're in this community, and I'm not even necessarily saying the Hive specifically. I'm saying if you're in this community that believe Brian Koberger is innocent, or that Brian Koberger didn't do this alone, or if you're in the camp that thinks that he's so guilty, people don't know how to have a discussion about possibilities without losing their mind. We see it in here. God forbid you say something different, or God forbid you say something that somebody doesn't agree with. There's no skill from so many people to be able to slow down and say, why do you think that? Or I've never heard of that. Can you tell me more? Why do you think they would potentially use AI to help sell a narrative? Do you know what I mean? It bothers me. And having these conversations, it's like so many people have probably self-censored themselves, which is the ultimate end goal that these big platforms, big media companies, they want. They want people to not say it out of fear, which is the worst position that you could be in.
Yeah. And another thing too, let's just say for a minute, and I'll be quick. We're not talking about the Idaho 4. We're talking about some nameless fictitious hypothetical case. We know that the powers that be are trying to push surveillance technology on us all. It's already there. It's there already. They're just testing the waters to see how much we'll accept. Would it be crazy to imagine a case in which they tried to accomplish a few different things? One, utilize AI technology to see how effective it is on citizens. Maybe it's DARPA, maybe it's the NSA, maybe it's a CIA, whoever. It's a fictitious case, right? Hypothetical. We know for a fact that certain agencies have carried out operations in secret against and without, you know, disclosure to the public. So no informed consent. We know this. Bioweapons have been tested on citizens without their consent. So we know this stuff has happened. So check that off. We know this stuff happens. Boom. We can put that aside now. If they're trying to push certain technology, certain, let's say, legislation, do people really think it's that crazy that there could be, let's just say in this fictitious case, a false flag type of scenario in which they create the appearance of a crime, and it's brutal crime, and it's horrific, and it draws tons of attention, to manufacture consent for the public to accept these agendas that they want to push through. Now, this is like, you know, conspiracy 101. I'm not going that far out there, but I think it goes back to what I always say. It's people are still framing this or any case like a regular true crime case. You can't separate the small things from the big things. They're connected. So I think that's why, Bertie, you get pushback from people if you present an idea, whether it's the Charlie Kirk assassination, whether it's the Idaho 4, whether it's Luigi Mangione, whether it's Nancy Guthrie, that doesn't fit into that sort of typical true crime framing. But in my opinion, like you brought up, like, what do you really know about the case? Well, what do I say all the time? We know what we have been told.
Yep.
We had these bombshell things come out, and the broken plea, and then Turvey, and then Holland, and it's like, whoa, look at this, what the hair in Ethan's hand, but what did that accomplish? It's like, in my opinion, that type of a thing could just be a distraction.
It absolutely could be. And as you were saying that, it reminded me of this image here. Professor Professor Ramsland, sorry about that speech impediment, a forensic psychologist at DeSales University who just so happened to be Brian Koberger's professor when he was there, incorporates hands-on crime scene reconstructions into her curriculum to give students practical investigative experience. Her training exercises involve setting up complex scenarios, such as staging specific body placements to teach students how to identify anomalies like blood spatter and anomalies. Let me ask you this. Would you consider, and this is just a thought experiment, would you consider the way that the Idaho 4 crime scene looks to be a complex scenario? I would. How is there so much blood in the room, and there's a cleanup and there's a footprint, but there's nothing else?
Yeah. Well, let's take that a step further. Let's pretend we're not talking about the Idaho 4 case. We're just continuing with the thought experiment. If there was funding in place to study crimes in a rural area or off-campus settings, how would you study that?
Well,
How would you actually study it?
you would go and you would set it up to look as real as it could. It's like, how do you train? How do people in the military train for an operation? They construct what they believe the compound that they're going to conduct the raid on looks like. They have people that, maybe in this area, and they go through different scenarios and they train and they practice so that when they get there, they're ready for everything. It's the same thing.
Right. And what is, the NIJ, right?
It's the
connected
funding
to
arm of
the
the DOJ.
DOJ, right? So they're also connected to what? They're connected to other agencies, other government agencies who have a lot of resources. Now, let's just say, because we're going to my overarching theories about the big picture stuff, that powerful entities are who really controls our government. And the government, and this is my theory, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me, they are really working on behalf of these bigger, powerful interests. So let's just say one of those powerful interests is, oh, well, let's make up a crazy company name like something like Palantir, a company that has a name like Palantir, and they want to push surveillance technology. Well, now we know that, oh, there's funding going on and research being conducted in an area with 2 universities close by about crimes and off campus and crimes in rural areas. Oh, wouldn't that be a great place? It's remote to utilize technology that we want to now generalize to the general population. So I look at that scenario or something like that as very plausible. Now, I have no proof that the crime was a false flag and it was staged. So that is why I repeatedly say that's not my number one theory, because I can logically say something like that could happen, but I can't provide enough information, whereas we can provide enough information to support, or at least some data to support the idea that there's a cover-up happening.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No, real quick. And then if you have converging interests, you and I have talked about that. If you have converging interests in an area where there's already government research being conducted, there's no dispute there, no one can argue that, then is it so crazy to think that after the fact, it served the larger agenda to not let the public know about what really happened, so they could push these certain agendas like a DNA database and eventually surveillance cameras, a network of surveillance cameras on all colleges? Let's just use that as a starting point, because I tell you, a university sure would be a good place for a test run.
Yeah, I'll take that even a step further, JJ. So you are spot on with why they might do it, how they might do it. But there's a massive X factor that comes into play with actually accomplishing that. And it has to be the people's approval. So as you stated, staging some sort of event to get people to do what? Ask for it. So often we walk right into these traps of a certain scenario or situation or an event is created that creates the situation, or I'm sorry, that has the effect of having us ask for the exact goal outcome that they originally wanted by coming up with said event. So somebody left a comment on one of my streams or the quick cut a couple of days ago, and I was going through and responding to some comments, and I saw this one. I was like, I forgot about that stream. And there was a stream where I said, isn't it a little bit interesting that if there is some sort of AI predictive criminal behavior, or if there is some sort of flock camera outcome, what are we doing? Especially if they're using this case to do it. Well, we're begging for more surveillance. We need more cameras. We need better audio. We need more angles. And so we're asking for this outcome because there's been a situation created where there's no transparency. And so they use our momentum against us. And they say, okay, well, that's what you guys want. Here, we're actually going to install government cameras on every single person's house. No, you know what? Take that back. We're going to have security drones. We're going to have security drones that are actually going to monitor your entire property for your safety. You know what I mean? Like that's an exaggerated example, but you get my point.
Yeah, and I sniffed that out in the Nancy Guthrie case, right? Because they had already started talking about that stuff. I on Devil's Advocates, I said numerous times, I said, guys, it's just a matter of time before we start hearing the DNA thing, Othram Labs or another lab, and eventually surveillance. Oh, if we had more surveillance cameras in place, this we could have solved this case immediately or prevented it, right, before it blew up.
Sorry, Philly girl. Great segue as like a period. They could sell it to us too. That's the other cherry on top. Of course,
that's manufacturing consent.
Yes.
Right. You manufactured consent of the public. And so whatever you're, all right, this, now I'm going to bring it back to the whole, the main topic of the stream, Bertie. Now you have a scenario in which we have, what do people know? What do we think we know? Right? People have their theories. But if at some point down the line, what has been talked about a lot lately, post-conviction relief. Is he going to file it? There's a rumor going around that he filed it. I saw that in the last 2 days.
Yep.
I haven't seen anything that confirms
that.
No. But if you take that, because that's part of what this whole thing has led us to, right? We're following the case, following it. Is he going to, do post-conviction relief? Is he going to file it? Well, let's just say he does. I've been saying for a while, watch what happens down the road from a big case. And that's how you sniff out agendas. Because if he does, and hypothetically, and he gets exonerated, then what is going to happen? Oh my God, this poor man spent 3 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. If we only had better DNA databases and better DNA technology and more widespread DNA technology, more collaboration between federal and local law enforcement, this would have been solved right away. And man, can you imagine if they had a flock camera system in that area? This would have been solved the next day, right? So that is something I can see happening, but they have to wait. They have to wait, and they have to make sure people are primed for it.
Totally agree, man. Well said. And I just saw another comment. And again, thank you. I'm so excited that we're getting to the 3-month mark. Don't drink chunky milk. Shout out to Discord Dawn for gifted 5 of them. Love and Other Habits. OG TikTok. Brad Harris. Appreciate that. Sarah Ray, welcome to Hive Plus. And Peace is Needed 2026 said, sorry I'm late. Thoughts about what Maddie said to Adam could be. Kaylee is undercover, which caused what happened. Also, why multiple involved, maybe. So I don't want to derail it. I chose to say this comment to go off of your point, right? Because there's questions like this that Peace is Needed just said, and there's questions like what Crime Junkie 72 just said, which is if Dylan had an Alexa, wouldn't they be able to receive the data? And I go back to this comment, and it's like, they would be able to figure out these, and there's no offense to Peace is Needed or Crime Junkie. Those are such simple things. If they wanted to figure out if Dylan had an Alexa and getting the data from it, they could do it. And whether it was needed or not needed, and they chose to do it legally or illegally, that doesn't matter to them. If they want that info, they're going to find it or get it or use somebody to go and get it for them. And then they're going to rediscover it some other way that they're going to claim is legal. It's exactly what they did with the DNA. And to the point about what Maddie said to Adam, just how I had said you could do the AI for the image, Guys, I mean, we can't see their mouths moving. They could have put that clip into the sound. You can extract audio, put it over the video. We have to stay that sharp in general. Like that one sentence. And again, that's another massive thing. It's just as massive, I would say, as far as speculating rumors as the knife sheath did for solidifying Brian Koberger did it. That one sentence of, Maddie, what did you say to Adam? Has caused enormous speculation that has never panned out. Do you know what I'm saying, JJ?
Well, look, if you think about it, if there was an operation involved, let's just say, which is what I believe happened, you need to distract the public because you don't want them finding out that an operation was the cause of students being killed or some students being killed. So let's hypothesize, just a crazy idea. We are assuming things based on what we've been told, right? You talked about this, how you and I talked about, we're trying to solve the official narrative. Like not totally, not literally.
I get it. Yeah.
But we're trying to solve the basic narrative we've been told. 4 students were stabbed to death at this timeline. What if one or more perps got taken out and they know exactly who was responsible, but they don't want the public to know who was responsible because it will expose things they don't want exposed, which would have definitely prevented kids from going back to school. Now, we've all talked about like, it was more than one perp. There's no way one perp could have done it. Well, maybe they're not trying so hard and all the interviews seem like a dog and pony show because they already got the perpetrators.
They already could have. And also, too, we're saying it had to be more than one person because they're saying that a knife was used. Guys, one person could have walked in there with a gun and done it. And it would have been quick. It would have been very quick. And so that's another thing, too, where I'm like, we've actually heard people on camera, the family members, like weeks later, talking about how their niece called them and said somebody's been shot. Again, whether it's just the generalized term of if you hear somebody died at a party, you're going to assume it was shot up. But we've also heard kids on the body cam of Officer House making his rounds talking about hearing gunshots. And so the search warrant had things for casings and other things and firearms. So I understand it's a general search warrant. My point, though, in saying that is even the most thought out theory looking at the document is wild. It's wild. It still involves multiple entrances. Are you scaling to the back patio? Do you have a gun? Do you not have a gun? Are there multiple multiple knives? Are there cleanup people? Do they come back later? Are the roommates in on it? Are they not in it? Guys, there's a million questions. But really, if you're going to do a hit and you want people dead, you want to do it quick, you're going to go in and you're going to shoot them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it like, so if it is that quick of a timeline, I think that the only way you could have done it, really, if it's as quiet and if it's Bethany's here to firecracker and all that other stuff, you could make an argument for that.
Yeah. Well, let's just do a little further thinking on this, if you don't mind. I don't want to pull me back anytime.
All right.
So if let's just say, what would be something, a different thing than what we've thought about that would necessitate a cleanup? I'm going to tie it into what we talked about earlier. What if that picture that I sent you, Birdie, was of 2 people, one person that during the attacks, someone was there that, whether it be law enforcement or somebody else that had a gun, we know we've seen at least one flash of light, right? And a sound on Linda Lane footage. What if somebody did get capped in the process of committing a crime And they knew exactly who it was. And if that person was connected to things that could not get out, and the school came in way before the 911 call and said, there's no way we can tell the public that this is what happened, because
Can
that'll be it.
I want to add to this because you're going right down the alley of what I wanted to talk about with you think you know this crime. We know what we've heard and what we've seen. And Dylan already said to the to Nunez, nothing ever happens in Moscow. That phrase is repeated at lengths weeks later. So to me, what that tells me is somebody had already been pushing that point.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's a giveaway to that, in my opinion.
It is. I've said, look, I apologize to anybody that's heard me say this shit a million times, but there, in my opinion, there was a contact that was, brought to the house right after this stuff went down. Whatever went down, there was a contact, and there's no chance that the university doesn't have total dominion over law enforcement in that area. That is literally what provides the income for that area for everybody, especially law enforcement. So they were given a narrative. I've been saying that all along. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. That's why I've defended Dylan many times. Not because I think she's an amazing person, because I think she was handed a narrative. Bethany was handed a narrative, and all the other interviews where they didn't push anybody about anything could be because they knew exactly what happened. They could, this theory that I'm just throwing out there now explains the flash of light. It explains talk of a gunshot. It explains why they would have to cover things up, right? Because if there was a CI there, it explains a lot of things. You could even extrapolate it out wider and explain more things with that theory, that they knew exactly who did it because they got them.
Right. And I'm going to ask what a lot of people are probably thinking, which is what Katie Camp 1992 said, which is, what about the autopsies though? And that goes back to, you can literally make it up. And I'm not saying that, Katie, is happening in this, because I agree. It's like, well, but the autopsy said this. And in general, I think what gets me with this and trying to relay the message is, JJ has said this a couple times. Good people like to assume everybody else is a good person. However, not everybody has good intentions. And if you believe that you're doing good, meaning that you're bought into and you're very loyal to, some sort of operation or a team, or taking an order to keep your livelihood as far as it being your day job, and somebody says, I need you to create this autopsy for this case. This is what, you know what I mean? So it wouldn't be the first time that an autopsy would say something happened and it didn't. I would bet everything on that.
Yeah,
you know
like
what I mean?
Charlie Kirk's autopsy.
Yes.
Come on, guys. If that's not the biggest red
His
flag
spine
example.
stopped at 30-6 because he was. It's just
God made him Superman, Birdie. Come on.
To me, whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God, that's what they rely on for the emotional trigger, instead of thinking of the fact that a 30-6 could take down a moose, a human spine. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what gets me, is people want to talk about
from
no,
200 yards.
Miracles can happen and all this stuff. And it's like, yes, we know it can, but just everything else. It's like they know the emotional pain points to get people to lose their critical thinking ability.
Yeah. I mean, this is why we all talk about psyops. Did you see the episode on Rogan with Chase
Hughes? Yeah.
He was like a naval intelligence, like psychological operations expert. And I swear I'm being honest. I recently talked about exactly what he talked about on that stream. Like literally, he said almost the exact words that I say frequently. And I'm not saying like, pat me on the back. I'm just saying, because this is real. This is what psyops are for. You try to get a desired behavior, a desired feeling from the public, a desired outcome from a person or a group of people. And I have been screaming from the rafters for how long now that there was an operation involved in this case. It's if you, I mean, people ask me to recommend books, right? And I recommend books that give factual foundations about operations and psychological stuff too. They happen. So you can't pretend they don't happen. And I think that I don't think we're no disrespect to anybody because I'm crazy. I'm OCD. I like
but
digging into shit.
you gotta, that's the other thing too. And I'm not calling it you out. I'm calling all of us out that are afraid to say what we want to. And we always preface it. I have that same terrible habit of, I'm not trying to offend anybody. Well, fuck, I don't care at this point anymore, because I'll sit up here and I'll try to not offend people. And guess what? People still get offended. People still want to talk a bunch of smack and they disagree. So at a certain point, just speak it how you feel it. And I'm working on it. Everybody should work on that. It's not just on stream. It's even in my regular life, like my day life. You know what I mean? You got to just say what you feel. Understand that fundamentally, if you're a good person and your character is good and you have good morals and you don't have any ill intent, if you're saying something that you believe and somebody else gets offended, I don't know if that's on you, but we've been told that it is.
Well, I try not to go too hard because I can go pretty hard and on.
Yeah, but you're not trying to be rude. That's the thing.
No, but I can be a, you know what?
What I'm saying though. There's a time and a place when you're just talking right now and you have an opinion of this could have been a psyop. People are going to hate, like they're, you know what I mean? They're offended on behalf of you thinking that, even though you could lay it out in a non, mean way.
Right. What I really want to try to get people to do, Bertie, is what we've talked about numerous times on here, is that you have to be able to zoom out and look at things. It's sometimes you just need to play games with your own mind to stretch your mind. You have to be able to say, well, what about this? What if there were 5 people injured? What you have to be able to break outside of this sort of confining tunnel vision about what we've been told, because to the point we're both trying to hammer home, if we've been lied to about so many things, why would people believe that the most basic aspects of the case were the truth?
Right. I agree. And Dead Men Awake, if you're in there, I just asked if you're popping up. I emailed that link. Don't do this very often, but I feel like over the last few call-ins, you've built some credibility if you say something's interesting. So just know that that is in your inbox. So yeah, anyways, JJ, to your point, that's what that's like my biggest takeaway is how I have seen people want something to be true so badly because either they thought of it, they believe somebody else who said it, and they want it to be true because they have some other type of emotion that's really pulling on their judgment of why they feel a certain way. Is it because it's the most likely? If somebody comes back and says, okay, that's fine, you're interpreting the footage happening at 4 a.m. because a document said it. How do you explain such similar and or louder, more painful, and wilder shrieks 2 hours earlier? You could take 4 a.m. in the document, and if I put a 2 a.m. in the document, guess what? Your entire theory would mold around it. But because a piece of paper said 4 a.m., and because the news that has pushed this has said 4 a.m., and they've given a ridiculous timeline, that document has now discredited everything else that you hear. When we know the case is wrong, we know that Brian Koberger didn't do it, and we still want to believe that and have it just be somebody else. I don't understand it. I'm not hating. I'm not going and saying that anybody's wrong. I like having the discussion about this because in my head, I'm like, we theorize because the truth is you can hear stuff earlier in the morning that is sketchy. You see vehicle movements that are sketchy. You see people walking around that are sketchy. Why is that not given more credibility if we believe that the documents are so wrong, it's got more holes in it than Swiss cheese, and that the outcome that they've said really happened didn't happen? Why would we not look at that or take it seriously?
Yeah, and why would you believe the most basic aspects of the case? If they have something to cover up, I always say, you know, every theory that someone puts forth, and I'm on Reddit, a couple of different Idaho 4 and Koberger threads and stuff on Reddit, whatever you call them on Reddit. And I think people don't want to go too far outside of the Overton window when it comes to this case. And, you know, the Overton window is basically the acceptable window of belief, what people will accept. And the Overton window shifts over time. And it shifts with a lot of things in society. So I think the Overton window in this case has been at a certain kind of thing that largely includes some of the most basic information that we've been told. But if they were willing to cover up stuff, in my opinion, I will just say it. I don't believe anything we were told about the case. I think
I would have never guessed that you felt that way.
like I mean like the most basic aspects of the case.
Yeah.
All right, so let me just throw this out there. I believe there was a gun involved. I've said this for a
Would
long
not put
time.
that out. Yeah.
And and it has nothing whatsoever to do with gun rack guy. Literally, that had no influence on my theory whatsoever. I've been there. I've been to that place. I'm a gun owner. I know that Idaho is a very liberal, you know, for guns. Liberal meaning you don't need a permit to carry in Idaho. So it's a very gun friendly state. The idea that somebody would go into a house that's got multiple cars parked in the parking area with a knife to kill 4 people with and not have a gun with them is absurd.
It's
And
the most ridiculous plot ever.
right. It's so preposterous that I think it's virtually impossible that they definitely had a gun. Now, if anybody was killed with a gun, that's a different discussion. But if someone had a gun, then the chances are that they would use it because it would be the lowest risk way. If your task was to take out people, then a gun is the lowest risk to the perpetrator.
Well, and I'm a probability person too. I've said that a lot when I say like, what are the odds of that? I would like to. This is actually a terrible. This is a very graphic analogy, but I'm doing this just to get the point across. If you were to have 100 people that have a variety of skill sets, of those 100 people, do you believe that there's anybody that could go in there and do what they said happened and end up with no cuts and only leave that amount of DNA at the crime scene? I would say expand that to 10,000, 100,000 people. I'm serious. And have them not seen on camera, not have anybody scream, be able to clean everything up the exact way that they did it, and watch their case play out the way that it did. No way. No way. I bet everything on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just we've been fed so much nonsense in this case. And what happens is you repeat a lie enough times and it becomes the truth, or at least it's accepted by many as the truth.
Yes. And just so you know, we got Dead Man Awake. Hive, you guys know during the week I typically don't do this, but like I said, I feel like Dead Man Awake has had some good points. He already emailed me this video, and it's the Banfield body cam. So I'm going to go ahead and just Dead Man Awake, just so you know, your voice will be on, your photo won't be, just like the call-in. So what do you got for us, brother? You're on stage.
All right. Now it feels like the pressure's on because the chat was cheering for me, you know. So, but I listen, and if you guys have heard this theory or let me know and I'll shut up.
Okay.
But the Banfield video footage Um, I've been just kind of going over it over and over because I feel like it's the outlier with all the other footage, right? Because it makes sense for them to play the Linda Lane. It makes sense for the 1112 or the the Grub Truck, or the Corner Club. But according to the cops, like the Banfield, to their like they're saying that it doesn't affect the case because those kids weren't involved, right? They weren't involved, and those cops weren't involved, and it wasn't at the time of the murders. So what's the point of the Banfield footage, right? So it's like what would be the purpose of it, right? If it didn't happen at the time that the stop happened, if nobody's involved that's in the stop and the cops have nothing to do with it, why is this even a thing that we care about? And so I kept watching it like a psycho, and I noticed something at it's like the 40-minute mark when he approaches the kid with the sunglasses and blonde hair. So it's
Okay.
about the 40-minute mark. So if you listen, it's everything's redacted in this, by the way, but then certain things aren't. So then as he approaches him, I noticed something that he says to him regarding his ticket. The MIC is the ticket he's getting, the minor in possession ticket.
Yep.
So when he approaches him, he tells him, "You're getting an MIC." He tells him the dollar amount, and he says, "You have to appear by December 1st." And I was like, "That's December 1st." So I looked into it because I know by me, it's 30 days for any ticket. You get 30 days. And so I looked it up, and from December 13th to the 1st, it's either 17 or 18 days. That's a random amount of time to have to pay a ticket, right? You get what I'm saying? Like it's for me, I've gotten many tickets in my life from all different types of tickets. It's always 30 days is what you have to pay the ticket.
Yeah.
So if he's giving them a ticket and saying you have to pay it by December 1st, 30 days would be November 1st. So to me, and with the snow, I've been fascinated with. So then I went and I looked up all the snowfalls that happened in Moscow in 2022 in November.
I know where you're going with this.
Wow.
And the first snowfall was a misting, and they said it was less than an inch, but it happened on November 1st. Right? So the first time any snow was on the ground at all was November 1st. And then the next one that happened that was measurable, according to Google, was November 28th. So a small snowfall by the time November 13th happens would be gone. It's not staying there for 2 weeks. Like I live in New York. I know snow.
Yeah.
It's not staying, right? So I just think it's interesting that who gives 18 days to pay a ticket? Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
No, I want to listen to it. So don't go anywhere.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think this part's redacted.
Yeah, it's so much stuff that's redacted in this.
Well, I wonder why.
Yep. Is the JLR one redacted audio or no?
It kind of is in a lot of spots. I looked at both of these.
Okay.
Citation here, and you put the rest of your information on here, but that's all your information. Citation is MIC, and then down here is going to be the paid by or contest by date. So it's in fraction. So there's a set fine for this, okay? It's $487.50, and it has to be paid or contested by December 1st.
Wow, dude. That is such a great
cat. Holy cow.
And like I'm not proud of it, but I've had instances with the law in my life, and I know for the majority of nothing is 18 days. They would never give you 18 14 days to pay something. They just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, so that's like the obvious thing is what you started out. By the way, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, brother.
I like the Strong Island accent, man. I'm from back east too.
Okay.
Um, so I think that it's we were just talking about distractions, and we've been fed a lot of distractions, surely at this point. So yeah, could this video have just been another distraction from a totally different time, totally irrelevant
Sure.
to get people looking, oh my God, the
Right.
guy's on the
Right.
Banfield.
No, and that's what I was trying to say is that I think that it's like, hold on 1 second. Well, 1 second, sweetheart. So my daughter. So
good.
hey, hey.
Oh, hey,
So
what's up?
so no. So what I was thinking is that what's interesting is that this video of the Banfield was released a month after, right? Like a month after the crimes. It came out in December, I think 14th. So it's interesting that if they're trying to push a narrative of a 4 a.m., this is giving them that opportunity because they're like, "Hey, look, we had guys over there. There was no screaming in the Linda Lane. Like this is what was going on." But I'm generally looking at the snow on the ground because you could see in this video I'm talking about that there's snow on the floor. So it's like it's like this was helping them push a narrative in that moment. You get what I'm saying? Like it was
Yes.
like so. And then once I was like, I don't know. I kept watching because I'm like the Banfield doesn't make sense to me. Why would the Banfield be released? Because it doesn't. It doesn't. It's if they're not involved, if the cops aren't involved, and if it's not at the same time as the crime, why does it even matter?
Dude, and now I think about what Lana had just broke with. That's the only night that they were working, and Officer Rosie wasn't in the
Yeah.
work logs. Guys, it could the party patrol. That's the only night that they were doing it. Well, if Dead Man Awake is correct, and that the first snowfall was on November 1st, and you really have 30 days to pay it from the time that you get your ticket, well, then yeah, they're gonna have to fabricate some sort of document that gives them a legitimate reason to say that they were there on November 13th in the morning. And what would you do? Oh, we were doing a party patrol. And it's going to be way random, and it's going to be way different than what you would typically see. Hence why it probably left the one time on record that they used it, because they did it to potentially cover up exactly what you just said.
Exactly. So they moved like so. It's like there was one night where they did this, right? Like Lena explained that. But we're going off of them being honest on the night that they did it. And for me, Halloween night makes more sense because there's more parties, there's more drinking, there's more, right? Like October 31st. And then we look at the guys in the video, like they're wearing kind of weird stuff, right? One guy's in glasses, whatever. Then there's one guy in a jersey. So it's like, I believe wholeheartedly that this video was before what happened, but then they used this as, hey, we were over there. So this 4 a.m. timeline is correct.
Yeah, I mean, how many other things have been shoved down our throats to push the 4 a.m. timeline? I mean, a damn book was written by an ex-intelligence officer that pretty explicitly distracted us away from any other timeline but the 4 a.m. timeline.
Right. That's what I'm saying is that this 4 a.m. is where their whole case depends on. It's only the 4 a.m. So if they needed that 4 a.m. So if they can show because why else would you show the Banfield footage? What does that give? What is the benefit of the Banfield if nobody in it is involved in the crime scene? It's an irrelevant video. The kids aren't in it. The cops aren't involved. There's no, screams being heard. So what's the relevance of that video?
30 days is common for Idaho citations. The deadline is usually around 30 days from the ticket date, but it's not a universal guaranteed rule. The actual deadline is whatever's printed on the citation. However, in most cases, generally about 30 days from the infraction date.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, and I've experienced that in my own life. It's always 30 days. Parking ticket, whatever infraction, it's 30 days. They give you a month.
I mean,
So-
I agree.
Like, I don't know if anybody in the chat has ever had a less than 30. Please let me know. But I know from my own experience and everybody I know, it's 30 days. It's just a common, you get a month. Why would they give you an 18-day appearance ticket? It doesn't
Right.
make sense to me. So it almost seems like they took a video that they had prior and then inserted it into the story to give credence to their timeline or to, oh, look, they're here from, because they're literally at the exact same time of the 1112 screams.
Yeah, and I just put a poll up, and here's the Judgment Day Dead Man Awake. I said, do you think that Dead Man Awake is onto something, and was this call worth it? I would vote yes, absolutely, because those are things that I believe completely start to unravel this giant web of lies. Is somebody like yourself who self-admittedly said, psychotically, I've been looking at this Banfield thing. It doesn't make sense to me. And then, dude, I got to give you credit, bro, because when you then went and looked up the snowfall, and then said it was November 1st.
Look it up. Look it up.
Yeah.
It says there's 2 snowfalls. November 1st was like a mistake, like the only one that was like a real snowfall. And then the next one was November 28th, which is when like Brian Enton did his like, video of, and there was snow everywhere. But it's like November 1st had the snow. So what are the odds that there's snow on the ground and the same night that would be 30 days to the crime, like to the court date?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I mean, this is kind of right on brand with what we're talking about. It's
Well,
like
that's what it was. And I'm sorry that I was capitalizing. Like, I didn't want to be like I wasn't trying to be the star or like say, but like this thing the Banfield I've been watching over, because it's the only video, in my opinion, that is different than all the other videos. Like all the other videos have to do directly with the house or directly with the girls involved in the house. This one is like the cops are saying, well, those kids had nothing to do with it. These cops had nothing to do with it. And it wasn't at the time of the crime. So then why is that being promoted by the media?
Right. And Jiffy.1 said not 30 days for these tickets. MIP in Latah are not 30 days. Well, I think he said MIC technically. I don't know if that's a different thing, but right? Did he say MIC or MIP? I don't know how much of a difference that makes, but when I just looked it up, it said, yeah, it's about 30 days. If it's not 30 days, and let's say, okay, then what is it? To your point, 17 or 18 days. That's the most random thing ever. It's not 10 days. It's not 14 days. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Like if you said 15, okay, maybe it's 15. But I know from my own experience, every ticket I've ever got, and I've gotten a lot, I don't like to admit it, but I've gotten many tickets from all different categories. It's always been 30. I've never heard of anything less like it's 30. That's like the standard. So he's giving out and saying, yo, you have 18 days. Why would that doesn't make any sense.
So Jiffy, thank you for the follow-up, said Latah County says the tickets are pre-printed based on court date appearances dates every few weeks.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, I guess, that seems like a very inconvenient way to do it. However, it's just, this is what we do in here. I think you're spot on. I've looked it up. I just saw 30
well,
days.
and I don't want to cut you off, but I looked specifically, I said Moscow first.
Yep.
Because they're the ones that are giving the ticket. And when I looked up to it, they said 30 days. And then I said, all right, well, what if it's a college kid on a college campus? And they said, same thing, 30 days. So, but it's like it would be either 15 if at the least, but I've never seen a ticket that's 15 days. So it's either maybe it's 15, but that's not 18, and then most likely 30. So either one, it doesn't land in either one.
Right. So, yes, I see what you're saying. So, thank you. It's Psycho Fool just sent me this. So, typically, you have until the due date listed on the minor in consumption infraction, the ticket itself. It says oft in around 14 to 30 days from issuance to pay or respond. We can see the amount right down below is 487.50, which is exactly what we hear. I'm going to go ahead and agree with what you're saying, Dead Man Awake, because if it's the 13th and you go 14, right? So I could see 14 to 30 days, but I would think it's going to be 14 or it's going to be 30. To your point, the 17 or the 18, that doesn't, again, I'm going to say more times than not, I believe that it would have been one or the other. Now,
100%. Especially in my experience.
Right. The other odd thing is you've gone and you've added other factors that makes this a little bit more solid, in my opinion, with the snowfall. I agree. I'm from the Midwest. I know how snow works too. If you get about an inch of snow, it's not lasting 2 weeks. 100%. No way.
Not in November. I mean, it's I live in the mountains, and like sometimes we'll get early snow, but unless we get more snow, it doesn't. It generally melts unless it gets really cold.
And it didn't, because I looked up all the weather. I mean, it was hitting 40s. It was hitting 45s, 30s, 30. Like, that's melting. You know what I'm saying?
The one thing I would say about this, because people are saying, I see the comments in the chat and stuff about it could be a little bit different here and there, whatever. But what I've always said is extremely interesting about these Banfield body cam videos is the people running in the background that you see that were cleared literally within like 3 days. It's like, oh, the people seen in the body cam footage running were cleared. They have nothing to do with it. How do you track down anonymous people running in the background and then clear them in 3 days? Remember how quickly that was dismissed?
Yeah, another great point.
Incognito Bandito said $300 fine for Kaylee and $187 fine for the boys. Is that how you're getting to the 487?
Well, Kaylee's was a noise complaint, wasn't it?
Yes. I think it was also just threatened, wasn't it? And didn't he make the joke about beer money then?
Yeah. I don't think he gave her a ticket. He got her digits, though.
Well, and I think you meant to type 487 for the boys, Incognito Bandito. I see. So if that's what if you mistype that, I could see the point of what that would be. It's like, oh, it's less for the girls than it would be for the guy, maybe. And White Rabbit said, in my opinion, it's a false alibi for Nate Rosie. Some screams are absolutely heard on the Banfield footage, but major screams heard on 1112 were muted. See, again, now it just goes back to this entire thing, whether you're right, Dead Man Awake, or you're not right, and it's legit. There are things that make it so weird. And I think that's the takeaway. That Banfield footage, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense how they didn't hear anything. It doesn't make sense why Steve G's commenting on it. It doesn't make sense why there's blood at the whites.
Right. It's the outlier of the case, in my opinion, because it doesn't show any of the victims. It doesn't show, it doesn't record the house. It's just why is that something you're pushing 1 month, almost to the day after the crimes are committed? Like, that's December 14th, it was released. Well, why? Like, what's the purpose? If you're saying that nobody involved in this video has anything to do with the crime, why is that important?
Well, yeah, the media would want to jump all over any nuggets that they could put out, but distraction, I always go
right. But the cops, if there's a cover up, right? We see how much they redact things. They're not going to want to just give something that could be maybe fuel to that fire. So if they're like, yeah, go ahead, release this, I think it's almost intentional to be like, hey, we know that these crimes didn't happen until 4 because our cops are there until 3:30.
Well, somebody posted in the chat that would be a good way to give a certain officer an alibi, to focus the attention away from 1122. You brought up the whites, Birdie, and that's
Yeah.
been talked about quite a bit lately, the blood.
Yeah.
Here's something, I don't know if it's been discussed.
Hang on 1 second, JJ.
Oh,
Dead Man
sorry.
Awake, you rock, bro. Thank you. I'm glad that you called in. I think that was very worthy, and I appreciate you taking the time to.
Yeah, I mean,
look
if
that up.
people didn't,
No,
agree,
people were
sorry.
loving it. People were agreeing with you.
Oh,
People were.
gotcha.
I think a lot of people, dude, I can tell you from firsthand experience, there's such a plethora of things that will tell you it's this way or it's that way or it was closed on this date. I believe that you came up here and you absolutely gave receipts for something that it could absolutely be. I mean, would anybody be surprised if they tried to pull some stuff like that in this case? No. So don't apologize, bro. I think it was great.
All right. I appreciate you, brother.
Good
I
looking
appreciate
out.
you, man. Have a good night.
You too, brother.
Cheers.
Yeah. I was sorry, Birdie.
Real quick, I just want to take some time right now because I wanted to make sure that there was a lot of people in here before I showed this. I want to give a massive shout out to somebody who's in the Hive. Holly was kind enough to make incredible art for me to put on the back table, and it will absolutely be there. I just want to show this off to everybody. So to Holly, thank you for this. Look at how effing sweet this is and how good this turned out. It's the run along NPC with the bird and the You're a Conspiracy Theorist. Unbelievable. And Holly, I just want to say thank you. This will absolutely be hung up. And I'm so excited to display it too when Mrs. Birdie and I move here in a couple of weeks. This will be one of the first things that I hang up in the new studio. But yes, for the time being, I'm going to go set this up back there. And I just wanted to make sure that I gave you a massive shout out because I appreciate that. She also made another painting that's back there too. So I'll quickly show that. And then JJ, we'll get back to it.
Yeah. Awesome. That's dope. Yeah. Nice. And it fits perfectly with the birdie aesthetic.
Dude, they're really good.
Yeah, and I just said it fits with the birdie aesthetic too, the birdie bombshells aesthetic.
Yeah, I got to get like one of those wall lights that kind of shines down on it. You know what I mean? Like almost like a reading light, and hang that above it and have it back there so that the beads will shine. Because right now the light's not hitting it too much. But thank you, Holly. Very talented. I agree. And now, sorry about that, JJ. I just want to make sure that
it's all good. I was just talking about, how recently people have been discussing the blood at the whites, right? Which has come up in the last 2 weeks. And a lot of people are saying, which is a theory that was going around quite a bit, that it started there, or some of it started at the whites, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is logical. But another scenario that I thought about is, what if other people were at 1122 when stuff went down, and it was the blood from them trying to, attend to what they found. And then let's just say, hypothetically, somebody from law enforcement or the school or a liaison for the house, let's say, showed up and they explained what was going on. That was dope, Holly.
Yes. So they're explaining what's going on.
And so they know what happened. So they cut these people loose and say, all right, just stay close by. You're going to get interviewed or whatever if we need to. And they go back, and that is where the blood came from. It went the other direction. It didn't. I'm just theorizing. It didn't necessarily start at the whites, but people went back to the whites after they were there when stuff went down. and they had blood on them. And because I still believe that somebody was called to that house way earlier than the 911 call.
I do too. I've been trying to think through scenarios on how there could be blood at the whites, and we see it on the floor, we see it on the walls. I mean, how could that be? And then how could there be nothing really in the house? Do you know what I mean? Like, I've questioned why not clean that up. Is there a different? It would be just as difficult to clean up inside it as it is outside, right? I mean, the cement, you're kind of cooked. Maybe rinse it right away, but there doesn't seem like there was any effort to do that. And I don't understand why that would be the case. Have you thought through that?
Well, also, why wasn't it considered a serious thing? Right? Right across the street, practically from the house, there's blood at this house. And why wouldn't you tell the public that, oh, it had nothing to do with the crime? Why would you let it hang in the air? You know, if you don't want to address it, there's got to be a reason. So I've said for a long time, I don't buy that. Oh, it was only these two people home at the time that this happened. I think that people were called to that house. Maybe it was just other frat or sorority people or whatever, and that is where the blood at the whites came from. It's just a thought.
Right. Well, and I want to talk about too, in general, the way that a lot of the things were handled. I went over last night. Okay. And JJ, I showed you this news clip that I found. I've made the argument that I don't believe that Moscow was as understaffed as they say that they were. I don't believe MPD was not well equipped for it. Again, it was one of the first talking points. They shoved it down our throats. Look at how many people are constantly around the crime scene. Look at how many different tools they have. They have drones. They have all these. They have an entire trailer set up outside of the house. Do you know what I mean? Like, they have enough people to watch every door, enter, exit, all these things. Thank you, Blue Eyed Candy, for gifting the 5 Hive Plus memberships. Appreciate you. And remember how we said, I think it was Holly, was it Becky C003? I know it's C003 that had called in and talked about this Chief Fry interview. And that's what got me to find the clip that I'm about to play now. The understaffed and the under-resourced, right, JJ? That had to have been in people's heads prior to this occurring. Because if they didn't say that point, then it would have looked even more odd that they're throwing mattresses in the back of pickup trucks. They're using a U-Haul and the chief of police is driving it, right? So I tried to go and find video of this day of when they started doing it. And I actually found a news report that says the following, which it caught my ear, and I'll play it for you all.
At the request of the students' families, Moscow police packed up personal belongings at the home. In fact, Chief James Fry said it was important for him to personally be here with the officers boxing up those items. Police officers arrived early this morning to pack up the students' things, and by noon today, they finished loading the boxes onto the truck. This is not something police typically do, but Idaho State Police onto the truck. This is not something police typically do, but finished loading the boxes onto the truck. This is not something police typically do, but Idaho State Police spokesperson Aaron Snell says in this case, it was appropriate.
This is the North. So I just find it odd that they self-admittedly then go and say they don't normally do this, but then the ISP spokesperson says, but in this case, they found it necessary. Do you know what I'm saying? I just find that to be so strange. And Blue Eyed Candy gifted more memberships. Jeez. Appreciate that big time. And Gigi, welcome back. Said, thank you, Birdie and the mods and the Hive. It feels so good to be back. Missed you all. You all are amazing. Right back at you, Gigi. Glad you're back. Glad you're here. But yeah, how convenient is it that Chief Fry just says, I felt it was important. And then the ISP spokesperson said, for this case, we felt it was appropriate. Why? Why don't you typically do this? But why this case? Like I'm not even, I shouldn't have even asked that in a sarcastic way. I don't want to sound like an a-hole. It's a serious question. Like, I feel like that would be a very genuine and authentic question. If I had the opportunity to ask them that, I would say, what about this case made you feel like you had to be there? Was it optics? That's the only excuse that I could possibly think of that might make some reasonable amount of sense.
Dude, so many things. The other night, just for the hell of it, I was just flipping through some stuff on Amazon, and I started watching parts of that. What was the documentary on Amazon? It was like 3 or 4 part series.
Oh, it was what was the name of the
One Night in
Amazon one?
Idaho or
Or
something.
was that the Dateline one? I don't remember the exact name of the Amazon one.
It's the one where they interview all the friends. and
Right.
Hunter
I've
and
seen
that.
it, but I don't remember the name of
I
it.
can't remember. I thought it was maybe One Night in Idaho. I can't remember, but there's a few things in that made me stand out. And since you brought up the, Fry, uh, saying I thought it necessary and he's driving the truck. Did you see? I never really paid that much attention to it in the press conference. One of the press conferences that was in that documentary, he is so nervous,
Oh yeah.
and the guys behind him their eyes are burning a hole into him. Like, don't screw up.
Yeah,
And
he's like doing this. He's like, help, or
yeah,
like blink twice, do some sort of Morse
he
code.
definitely
Because
looked like a captive, like a hostage video, man. And the guys behind him with their eyes, they were like psycho eyes staring at him. And one of the other things that stood out because I hadn't watched that in a while, was one of the friends, I think it was Josie, saying, "We know these people. Nobody did drugs." Well, we know that's not true. So you're losing credibility just by, right? Because we know that it came out that a few of them were on drugs at the time, and then it was also talked about that somebody else in the house dabbled as well.
Right. Well, that is interesting. I sometimes, like, I'll throw on that I'll throw on one of the various mainstream documentaries and kind of just watch it until I fall asleep, get up, and then go to my room when I have nothing else to go watch. And it's interesting because I look for things like exactly what you just said, because I feel like the media that they pick to overlay when they're doing their voiceovers, sometimes it just looks different. The quality might be a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? You might be able to see things or hear things that you typically wouldn't. And before we go, JJ, I wanted to also just talk about a couple of other things. I didn't pull this up when you had brought this up, but since we're talking about mainstream media, I think the timing of this is okay to transition to. And it's this. So we have a point that you brought up, which is this. Was a journalist.
I had a legitimate cover working in media. So I was a masthead writer for GQ magazine because of my books. I had an op-ed contract at the New York Times. And
the point that I want to pay attention to is this first part right here. The FBI, in one of his covers, was a journalist.
I had a legitimate cover working in media. So I was a masthead writer
I was a masthead writer. I had a legitimate cover working in media. And JJ, you've called that out. You're one of the first people that I've heard call out the oddity of that in his background. And so I found that clip. I used it today in the quick cut. But if you wanted to circle back to that quickly, at least now we have the reference of him saying it.
Well, the one that I was referring to was another one that you sent me from a totally unrelated interview where he literally says intelligence, right? Intelligence is not the FBI when you're doing it in other countries. He's talked about it openly numerous times. He worked for the intelligence agencies, and he said the actual words, "I had a journalism cover."
Yeah.
Which, to me,
it's so weird.
Says it all.
And I'm not hating I'm not hating on him. He was very nice. He was a cool dude backstage, and his agent was cool, or his manager was cool. Like I said, I talked with Turvey on the phone and tried to get him on the show. It's just weird that it was such a push. It's a bestseller, and it's like a massive case and so much disruption. And even in the interviews, he was like, "Yeah, no, I'm doing this. This is my part." And it's like, well, what do we do with this now? How, like, where do we go with it? And then it's like both of them really have it. It's like, why put yourself out there? Why take the backlash? Why take the scrutiny unless there was a role and a time and a place that needed to serve a purpose? Blue Eyed Candy again with the memberships. Thank you so much. Sheesh. It's on fire tonight. And it's just, it's so odd. The whole 25 pages being missing. And there's something to that. Even if that's not the case and I'm way off on it, the common theme, the ability that it can be done. That's what I think is the takeaway. He's literally admitting that he has worked for an intelligence agency where he had a cover, meaning he is not who he says he is, and he's writing articles in the media.
Right. And that's a common thing, actually. Amaryllis Fox, who's the daughter-in-law of RFK Jr., was a CIA operative, and she wrote a book, and I listened to the audiobook version of it. And when you go overseas to do operations, you get a cover.
Yep.
Right? You have to, if you're in operations, you can't be like, hey, I'm a CIA agent, I'm just hanging out in your village or whatever, whatever city where they put you.
Yeah.
But so my bigger point is this, and I'll leave it at this. It's not about, look, if that's what Chris Whitcomb's job was, then that's what his job was, right? I mean,
right. It's his job. It's what he's supposed to do.
If your job is to run cover for an operation that has national security implications, that's fine. I'm not saying it to critique him, like how could he do this? What I'm saying is, I believe there was an operation involved, and in my humble opinion, that book was a controlled opposition limited hangout. That is my honest opinion based on what I know. And it's, if his job is to do that, then he did his job.
Right. And so last night, JJ, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the stream last night or the quick cut. The whole reason why I went into the movie company and why it's not something that they normally do has a lot to do with, they're saying they don't typically do it, but in this case, it makes sense. We've seen so many other things that don't make sense. Again, I'm not jumping as far to say WITSEC, people are alive or they're not alive. Maybe some are in WITSEC, maybe some aren't, because I don't think that that's productive to the conversation, because it's going to trigger people. Okay, at the end of the day, it's going to trigger people, and also I don't know. However, I will point out things that I feel like operationally look so out of the so not usual, and can allow us to just discuss what we're seeing, and people can come to their own conclusions about it. I'm not even trying to play it safe. I'm saying legitimately, I think that's the only way that people are able to think through some stuff like this, myself included at times, right? Because if I don't think about stuff that way, then I'm like trying to theorize, well, why would they do that? And instead, I want to just look at it from a 40,000 foot view and say, okay, the ISP spokesperson said they police typically wouldn't do this. So it's either optics or there's a reason.
Well,
right?
Yeah, well, this is what we always talk about. Like, it's so many unusual things with this case, and unusual potential narratives that could be looked at and be considered plausible.
Yes.
And so I'm going to say it for the first time on Birdie Bombshell Show. I think what really happened in this case is a combination of a couple of things that we've all discussed before. But we're not thinking of it that way, because the way the mind works, you tend to connect things that are similar or related or in proximity. That's just the perception. That's how the mind works. I think what happened in this case could be as crazy as there were either more than 4 people or less. And in order to push a certain narrative and keep certain things hidden, they had to potentially get a CI out of the picture, and they couldn't have it to where, because they would have to explain why this, what were the motives for a certain potential organization to be going after college kids. And if they don't want that to come up, then they would need to create a narrative that steers away from that potential narrative. And so I have a feeling that what has really happened in this case is actually a combination of like 3 different theories.
Yeah. Well, and that makes a lot of sense. And Blue Eyed Candy had just said the way that the 4 were brutalized is key to this case, in my opinion. That goes kind of right off of what you said, just a different dynamic. So you're saying the number of people, right? Blue Eyed Candy saying the way that their wounds looked. Well, to your point, you're saying either it was more or it was less. And I would say, Blue Eyed Candy, how my brain interprets it, and I'm sure maybe JJ and many others in here potentially do as well, is if you look at that, you're like, that's either what happened or it didn't, and it's said to create some sort of conflicting thought process of, but, and I'm not even just talking about this case, I'm generalizing. You would say it was so brutal, it was so this, so that your brain doesn't go to what JJ said. Was there less? Was there more people? You're focused on those 4 and how brutal it was. I hope that makes sense.
That makes sense to me. And another thing I wanted to add to that, 2 of the victims had quote unquote signature wounds, right?
Yep.
Now let's just hypothesize. That was pointed out pretty heavily in both with Whitcomb's book and with Turvey's discussions. And I can't recall off the top of my head if Holland talked about the same thing. He said some conflicting things, actually. He had said it wasn't post-mortem, I believe. But I think that when you look at the distraction angle, sometimes the distraction might not be away from something totally nefarious. The distraction could just be away from something they legally have to keep hidden. And if you create a narrative with a few of the victims that's extremely compelling, it would create the idea that, well, they were so brutally killed that it had to be personal. But then what would you not do? You wouldn't be saying, you wouldn't be questioning the official story. You would just be focusing on the fact that 2 of them were quote unquote staged and had signature wounds. So you would focus on that's really compelling information.
Right. And also it could, when I say you forgot a part of it, I did too. And it just popped into my head for the first time, is they could also be creating a purposeful conflict to cause confusion. They could say the timeline was extremely quick and it was quiet, but then look at the wounds. It's so brutal. There's no way you did it in that amount of time. And then what do? We're confused and we don't have an answer to either. Was the timeline longer or were the wounds less? And what it keeps us trapped in this cycle. And so I could say I would say that that's also an effective method that could play out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the interesting thing about psyops is people assume that they're meant to push a certain idea. Oftentimes they're just meant to distract people.
Right.
And confuse people.
Yeah. Izzy Pop Design said, I used to be an autopsy lab tech. I also built crime scenes in my college forensic classes. I know staging because we did it. Ooh, Izzy, you should call in one time. I would love to hear some stories about that. What did it look like? What did the setup look like? Did you use cadavers? Did you not? Was it real blood? That would be very, very interesting. Or even if you just want to type something out into an email, I'm more than happy to read it if you don't feel comfortable calling in. But I'd love to hear more about that. And JJ, how I want to finish tonight is this. So we were talking about the moving, and I appreciate you for sharing that theory because it has to be a combination of things. I think that what we're talking about with what we're actually seeing, we don't even need documents for this. We're seeing this documented on video and on audio. that should count as documentation as well, in my opinion. Just because it's not typed out doesn't mean that this wouldn't be considered documentation, right? It is. It's documented. It's on video. It's on audio. And so we're listening to this. We're seeing the moving company. I talked about how that moving company was Quad Cities, whatever the LLC was, but it was doing business as North American Relocation or City North American. And they shut down within a couple weeks of the murders happening. And then I said it was registered. I saw that it was registered in Washington, actually, underneath that Quad Cities thing. And I said, what are the chances? Quad Cities Task Force, Quad Cities, did they really just do business as the City North American? That's here nor there of shell companies. What I found to be strange was that in the ISP documents, there was surveillance at a storage facility that's on the same Department of Defense list that I showed that was updated 1 year and 1 day prior to the murders occurring. There's a 1122 and there's a 1112. Close proximity of what's under surveillance. I don't know what to make sense of it, but I started thinking that's in Lewiston. Mowich was found wandering around in Lewiston. And I made a list of some of the similarities that are in that area that are also in Moscow. And this was kind of mind-blowing to me. So we have what I just listed with the house numbers, 1112 and 1122. I showed that. If you haven't seen it, the quick cuts up. We have Mowich found wandering around and died from what they said was a car accident, but it wasn't, because the FBI or the nurse had reported it to the FBI saying they think it's in relation to the Moscow murders. Okay. That Elantra was found in Eugene, Oregon. Do you know how far away Eugene, Oregon is from Lewiston in hours?
Let me guess.
8 hours.
Okay.
The 911 call, the 8-hour delay. So I'm just thinking to myself, like, what is going on here? So, and I'm not saying that Mowich, because I know that was found, later, the white Elantra, but I'm just saying, like, the white Elantra that they say is not related, Mowich that they're not talking about not related. It's 8 hours apart from each other. And then I started thinking, okay, if you want to get nuts on a wild theory, and let's just say that maybe Mowich, I'm thinking out loud because, like I said, I made this list late last night, and I'm trying to remember what my original thought was, but it was something along the lines of, could there have been a situation where the reason for the cover-up is because Mowich was killed, and maybe Mowich wasn't an attacker, but was an attack done on Mowich separately? And was it potentially the same group that attacked Mowich that attacked the people here, maybe? And I just started thinking through, because that makes no sense. If the guy died and later succumbed to his injuries, people say that all of the time in certain homicides. You know what I mean? It was like, the perpetrator later succumbed to their injuries.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was just trying to think through that. That's a very, that was a very broad description. I'm still thinking through that. But
well, look,
that's kind of what, sorry. This is kind of what I was getting at. Was there some connection to the people that did the hit on 1122 that also got to Mowich, and Mowich recently out of prison, known affiliates? Do you know what I mean? And if Mowich became exposed, that could have exposed an entire web of other things. And maybe we've been looking at Mowich as the killer, but Mowich could have been potentially a reason for the cover up.
Right. Well, the way that I look at that situation is, why wasn't he really investigated? All right, he died, right? But if they knew what had happened and they didn't want the thing that actually happened and who was responsible to get out to the public, you would steer as far away from the perpetrators that would lead to other things as possible, right? So anybody that would have been connected to what you would not want to get out to the public is not going to be publicly exposed or investigated. So we weren't told anything about what they investigated, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right. And that's so again, guys, if you are newer here, let me just also explain too. We think out loud and we talk out loud. So like that last part that I just said, yeah, I don't necessarily have any receipts, but I think that's the most effective way to do it is if we were all sitting around and hanging out, in the living room talking about this and we're just throwing stuff out there. Some people hate it, some people love it. Well, I would say this. At the end of the day, everybody looking at this case is theorizing. We're looking at video, we're looking at documents, and then guess what? We're trying to piece it all together by creatively bridge building how it would make sense. That's what detectives do at the end of the day. And I'm not claiming we're detectives, but I'm saying to act like that's so unreasonable to do. It's literally how the professionals will do it. Do you know what I mean, JJ? That's another thing too, where it's like, what else are we supposed to do?
Yeah, well, look, if they had been straight up with people and there weren't so many inconsistencies and blatant lies from day one, they were all sleeping and so on and so forth, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be where we are probably. That people were, I mean, look at all this stuff that's come out. Every single interview, it's like kid gloves. I mean, the custody queens, because they're attorneys, they have to depose people. And they're just baffled at how they're not pushing at all on these interviews. So I still believe, I really feel strongly about it now more than ever. They knew what happened, but they couldn't let that real thing that happened get out to the public, because it would destroy the school and credibility in the area. And so they had to go through the motions like they were doing a full investigation, like they didn't really know what happened, and then enter Koberger.
Yep.
Who, by the way, was probably working with law enforcement in some capacity and with research at the very least.
Well, I just want to ask this quick question. I've done it before. I like to check in and do a temperature check. Type a 1 in the chat if you believe that Brian Koberger at this point is either working to or knowingly connected to this role that he is in. And when I say knowingly connected, I'm saying he is aware and this is not just a wrongful conviction. And if you don't think that, that's okay. I'm not shaming anybody. We're all open to our own opinions here. But I just believe that, again, we have seen so much stuff with, even if you took funding out of it, look at his background. Look at what he does. The emails with Chief Jenkins. I find it very odd, too, that Operation Last Mile started in May and he was emailing Chief Jenkins in April. And then Operation Last Mile ended a year later in May of 2023. And his plea deal was typed out for June and he crossed it out. And he wrote July. So I'm like, a month before there's a record. And then a month after there's a record that's wrong. The 2.5-year partnership, I think I've shown this. And I'm going to finish the stream by replaying just like 5 minutes of the quick cut explaining that, JJ, because I think that I want people to see that information. If they don't, what we're saying without the visuals is hard to understand. And so that is the benefit of the quick cuts, guys, is that I can overlay stuff. And JJ, I've been loving these Wednesday nights, bro. I'm glad that you and I connected. I hope that you all in the Hive have appreciated JJ and the bigger picture thinking, the deep state exposure, one might say, because it's very real and there's a ton of patterns. And I think JJ has a gift being able to explain it in a way that a lot of people can wrap their head around. I think that has a lot to do with your psychology background.
Yeah, and I'm a little weird too. That probably has something to do with it.
We're all a little bit weird. And guys, I'm going to do a quick plug here for you, JJ, so people can go and make sure that they follow you or subscribe to you. Guys, go check out some of JJ's videos right now. He just started this channel. It's brand new. This is what, your second or third time only up here that we've been doing this. So go show JJ some love. There it is at State of the Deep. And he's putting out great content. Just started going live. And I'm excited to see where your channel goes, bro.
Yeah, man. Thank you for your support. Thank you to the Hive. I sincerely appreciate it. I really do. And I love the way people in the Hive think, because they seem, at least from what I can tell, they seem to get the way that I think.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I know you do, Birdie. So I appreciate you guys very much.
Absolutely, brother. We are happy to have you. And Hive, I'm going to go ahead, and if you guys want to hang out and watch the next 5 minutes of this, I'm going to go play the quick cut. If not, and you guys want to go watch the quick cut, it's the last video that I posted today. So, Hive, I will see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central. Cheers, JJ. Thanks. Appreciate you.
Good night, everybody.
See ya. Oops.
The spokesperson Aaron Snell says in this case, it was appropriate.
This is the North American Relocation Company located at 1420 South Main Street in Moscow, Idaho. It's permanently closed. If you go onto this website here, DPS Storage Facilities, CONUS, what does it mean? It means Defense Personal Property System, the official Department of Defense system used to manage military moves. So that specific North American relocation site, 1 year prior to this happening, just so happens to be on the official Department of Defense system that's used to manage military moves. I couldn't find it in Idaho, so I thought to myself, I wonder if somebody in Washington registered it. And what popped up? The city North American, located at the exact same address, is doing business and is inactive and is permanently closed with their mailing address still 1420 South Main Street, Moscow, Idaho. They had their household goods permit canceled, but it's doing business as the Quad Cities Moving and Storage Incorporation. There's a Quad Cities Task Force. This shut down after the murders. Guys, permanently closed. All those operations going on at the exact same time. And I just saw a comment. I'm not going to let this one go. I'm not upset, but I already saw it. It's like somebody just said, there's a lot of stuff called Quad Cities. Yeah, okay, there is. But how many things are called Quad Cities with a Quad Cities task force in their backyard, where the suspect is going to school as a criminology student, where the funding he specifically and most likely went there for was partnered with Quad Cities task force, where then that company just so happens to move all of the people out in this weird crime that he was convicted for. Like, that can't just be random. The emails that we've seen, Brian Koberger was specifically applying for a research partnership between WSU and the city of Pullman. That program will cover 2.5 years. It's almost to date 2.5 years that Brian Koberger was going through all of this, from when he was arrested to when he was sentenced. I also find it strange. There is an operation called Operation Last Mile. It focused on getting fentanyl off the streets. The DEA office out of Seattle would have been the ones handling this, covering Idaho. That started in May of 2022, and it ended in May of 2023. And I thought to myself, Jesus, that is so weird that Brian Koberger, 1 month before that starts, is emailing Chief Jenkins in April of 2022. And then I'm like, wait a second. 1 month after that operation ended in May, I remember his plea papers had June written on it, but he just scribbled it out and it ended up happening in July. So I'm like, that's so weird to me that a month before this operation kicks off, Brian Koberger is talking with Chief Jenkins. And then 1 month after the operation concludes is when Brian Koberger's plea papers are supposed to say that he pled, but he scribbled it out and crossed it out. This is an ISP report. Jacob Schwecke said on December 28th, 2022, ISP detectives Will Adams, Cody Herman, and I, Jacob Schwecke, conducted surveillance on 2 storage unit facilities within the city limits of Colfax in Whitman County, Washington. The facilities were blank, associated with blank and Colfax. The office is located at blank and blank located at blank. Surveillance went into the morning of December 29th until I was able to contact and review the managers of both facilities. I went and I looked up the zip code 83501 on that same DPS storage facilities. Eagle Transfer and Storage, 701 29th Street, North Lewiston. Again, updated 1 year, 1 day before the murders. They have 2 sites. You can see them down in the lower right. They have their office, and then they have their other site. And this is the one that I feel like I remember seeing in a Pavarotti video. So I just find it weird that if that is the storage unit that they're looking at, that out of however many storage units there are in this area, that the ones that are listed just so happen to be on this updated list 1 year and 1 day before. This is the only zip code that's on that list too, by the way. And this is also just strange that the storage unit that they say in Lewiston has an address of 1112.